I just kind of cast it as, oh, he's losing his marbles. Had I known, I think I would have handled it better. I think I would have been a much more patient person. I think my father would have felt way less alone.
In the shimmering, often illusory realm of Hollywood, where celebrity personas are meticulously crafted and careers are seemingly built on foundations of unwavering adoration, the notion of a true catastrophic downfall can often feel like a distant, almost mythical concept. Stars, especially those orbiting in the highest echelons of fame, are often perceived as Teflon-coated entities, impervious to scandal, shielded by layers of publicists, and seemingly immune to the harsh realities that govern the lives of mere mortals. But every now and then, the carefully constructed facade cracks, revealing the vulnerability beneath, and in the most dramatic instances, the entire edifice can come crashing down with breathtaking speed and finality. Picture this: Marvel Studios, the monolithic, seemingly invincible empire that has redefined blockbuster cinema, the architects of a sprawling, interconnected universe that has captivated billions worldwide, making an announcement that defied all expectations, that shattered the perceived norms of Hollywood power dynamics. They weren't just shuffling a supporting player off screen, they were publicly, decisively severing ties with Ryan Reynolds. Yes, the Ryan Reynolds, the charismatic embodiment of Deadpool, the wise-cracking, fourth wall-breaking anti-hero who had become synonymous with the very spirit of irreverent superheroism, a box office titan, and a performer who had, through years of savvy self-promotion and carefully cultivated charm, seemingly cemented his place as one of the most universally beloved figures in the industry. His sudden, unceremonious dismissal wasn't a quiet, behind-closed-doors affair. It was a public spectacle, a career execution carried out in the full glare of the media spotlight, swift, brutal, and utterly devoid of ambiguity. And the weapon wielded in this Hollywood decapitation, a meticulously compiled trove of digital evidence, the now infamous receipts, a digital paper trail that meticulously documented a clandestine campaign of manipulation and misinformation, revealing a side of Ryan Reynolds so jarringly at odds with his meticulously crafted public image, it was almost as if two entirely different people were being exposed. How could someone so deeply entrenched in Hollywood's power structure, so seemingly secure in his position as a franchise linchpin, poised to headline massive multi-year Marvel projects and reap the associated rewards, face such an abrupt, ignominious, and seemingly irreversible downfall? The answer, as is often the case in the labyrinthine world of celebrity scandal, lies buried deep within a tangled, messy, and increasingly toxic web of accusations, leaked messages, and a ferocious behind-the-scenes power struggle that tore back the velvet curtain on the carefully constructed world of celebrity image, exposing for all to see the raw, often ruthless, and undeniably human realities that simmer beneath the surface of Hollywood glamour. This is the story of that unraveling, a cautionary tale of fame, power, and the devastating consequences of hubris in the digital age.
I'm honored, and I'm also more honored that because, you know, what we're talking about is so important and so meaningful, that we're able to have this much anticipation, and so many people want to go see it and are talking about it. Like, that's what I'm grateful for.
And you had a key part in bringing it to the big screen. How did this all come to be?
Well, in 2019, I read the book. I was sent the book by my book agent and friend at the time, and I was looking for films that could inspire, that were commercially viable, but also could really like reach in and touch somebody's heart.
To truly grasp the magnitude of Ryan Reynolds' spectacular fall from grace, one must first understand the meticulously crafted edifice of his public persona, the carefully constructed brand that had propelled him to the pinnacle of Hollywood stardom. For years, Ryan Reynolds had not just acted the part of the Hollywood golden boy, he had embodied it, radiating an aura of effortless charisma, an almost preternatural likability that transcended the screen and permeated every facet of his public life. Witty banter wasn't just a comedic tool in his arsenal, it was his primary mode of communication, a constant stream of self-deprecating humor and charming quips that disarmed critics and endeared him to fans in equal measure. Self-deprecation, often a risky strategy in the ego-driven world of Hollywood, became his unexpected shield, a way of preemptively deflecting criticism and projecting an image of relatable humility, even amidst stratospheric success, and genuine likability that elusive, almost intangible quality that separates true stars from mere performers, became his ultimate and perhaps most potent weapon. He wasn't just a movie star in the traditional sense. He was a meticulously curated brand, a one-person entertainment conglomerate operating at peak efficiency, seamlessly blending on-screen charisma with off-screen charm to create a persona that resonated deeply with audiences across demographics. Think for a moment about the Deadpool phenomenon. It wasn't just another superhero movie churned out by the Hollywood machine. It was a genuine cultural moment, a meta-commentary on the superhero genre itself, a gleefully irreverent and boundary-pushing cinematic experience that was propelled to stratospheric success almost single-handedly by Reynolds' unwavering dedication to the character and his infectious, almost manic personality. Marvel Studios, in their shrewd assessment of the entertainment landscape, saw him as far more than just a talented actor. He was a strategic investment, a franchise linchpin capable of anchoring entire cinematic phases, a reliable box office draw in an increasingly volatile and unpredictable market. He was deemed key to their ambitious long-term future plans, a cornerstone in the ever-expanding, infinitely lucrative Marvel Cinematic Universe, confidently expected to draw in vast audiences for years, if not decades to come, ensuring a steady stream of revenue and solidifying Marvel's dominance in the global entertainment market. Fans didn't just passively adore him from afar, they felt a genuine connection to him, as if he was somehow in on the joke, a fellow traveler in the often absurd world of celebrity fandom. One of them, despite his undeniable A-list status and multi-million-dollar paychecks. Studios didn't just passively trust him to deliver on screen, they actively courted his involvement, viewing him as a virtually guaranteed sure bet, a reliable return on investment in an increasingly risky and unpredictable industry where star power alone was no longer a guarantee of box office success. He seemed, to all intents and purposes, bulletproof, scandal-proof, career immortal, a fixture in the Hollywood firmament destined for enduring stardom. And it was precisely this carefully constructed image of invincibility, this deeply ingrained perception of Reynolds as the perpetually charming, scandal-averse golden boy that made the news of his abrupt firing so utterly and profoundly baffling, so utterly and inexplicably wrong. It was akin to hearing that the sun, the very source of light and warmth in our solar system, was suddenly announcing it was going on an indefinite vacation, leaving the world plunged into an unexpected and disorienting darkness. Something fundamentally, irrevocably didn't compute, and the collective question echoing across Hollywood, and indeed the internet, became how, in the name of all that is sacred in the celebrity pantheon, could such a seemingly invincible star, a figure so deeply embedded in the fabric of Hollywood power, fall so spectacularly, so publicly, and so seemingly permanently from grace? To even begin to unravel this intricate and deeply unsettling Hollywood mystery, we must rewind the narrative clock and meticulously examine the seemingly innocuous, almost ironically titled film project that would, against all odds, become the unlikely epicenter of this career imploding, reputation-shattering earthquake, shaking the foundations of Hollywood power and exposing the fault lines beneath the glittering surface of celebrity.
I mean, I internalized that as opportunity. Like, we had such a responsibility to this audience to deliver something and to have the opportunity to deliver something for a passionate group of people.
Yes.
As someone who is so deeply passionate myself, I was so excited about that. I would so much rather have that than people who are indifferent.
Blasé.
To fully appreciate the unexpected trajectory of this unfolding Hollywood drama, it's crucial to shift the focus, at least momentarily, away from the dazzling supernova of Ryan Reynolds' stardom and cast a spotlight on the perhaps less globally recognized but equally significant figure of Justin Baldoni. While perhaps not yet a household name plastered across glossy magazine covers and dominating global box office charts like Reynolds, Baldoni was, within the often insular and highly competitive industry circles of Hollywood, a figure of steadily growing respect, burgeoning influence, and undeniable admiration. He'd consciously and somewhat against the prevailing currents of blockbuster-obsessed Hollywood, carved out a distinct niche for himself, not in the realm of explosive action spectacles and CGI-laden epics, but in the more nuanced and often underappreciated art of crafting emotionally resonant stories, films that aim to forge a genuine connection with audiences on a deeper, more human, and fundamentally more meaningful meaningful level, he'd painstakingly built a solid and increasingly enviable reputation for directing projects that were not only commercially viable and appealing to a broad demographic, but also genuinely moving, thought-provoking, and emotionally impactful movies that possess the rare power to make you laugh, cry, and, crucially, feel something real amidst the often cynical landscape of contemporary cinema. When Baldoni landed the coveted opportunity to direct a big-screen film adaptation of a beloved and critically acclaimed novel, a story brimming with poignant themes of love, loss, and resilience, populated by richly drawn characters and imbued with a powerful emotional core, anticipation began to steadily build within both industry circles and the vast community of devoted readers who cherished the source material. This wasn't just another studio assignment, another cog in the Hollywood machine. It was, for Baldoni, a deeply personal passion project, a once-in-a-career chance to translate cherished literary source material into a powerful and visually arresting cinematic experience, to breathe new life into characters and narratives that had already resonated deeply with millions worldwide, and to headline this ambitious and emotionally charged endeavor. The casting coup of Blake Lively, a bona fide movie star known for her captivating on-screen presence, her dazzling red carpet appearances that consistently generated headlines, and an undeniable, almost magnetic charisma that translated directly into tangible box office appeal, drawing audiences into theaters with the promise of her luminous presence. On the meticulously crafted surface, viewed through the rose-tinted lens of Hollywood PR and studio press releases, it all appeared to be a near-perfect alignment of creative forces, a cinematic dream team poised to deliver a truly special and memorable film. Baldoni's sensitive and empathetic directing style, perfectly attuned to the nuances of human emotion, Lively's undeniable star power and proven ability to connect with audiences, and a source story guaranteed to tug at the heartstrings and spark widespread emotional resonance. What in this seemingly idyllic equation could possibly go wrong? Well, as the age-old adage whispered across countless Hollywood sets and studios so ominously reminds us, the devil is always lurking in the details, and almost imperceptibly, almost innocently, from the very earliest stages of production, subtle but persistent whispers began to circulate from the film set, carried on the invisible currents of Hollywood gossip and industry chatter, rumors of friction between key personalities, murmurs of simmering creative clashes that went beyond the typical artistic disagreements inherent in filmmaking, hints of underlying personality conflicts, subtle power struggles, and a growing sense of unease that something beneath the polished veneer of professional collaboration was beginning to unravel. But these initial tremors, these nascent signs of trouble brewing, were, in the notoriously volatile and high-pressure world of filmmaking, often dismissed as practically commonplace, almost expected, just the usual, perhaps slightly amplified bumps in the often turbulent, always unpredictable road of translating a complex creative vision from script to screen. Except in this particular instance, these seemingly minor, easily dismissible bumps in the road were about to escalate with alarming speed and intensity, snowballing into a full-blown Hollywood landslide, a devastating cascade of scandal and accusation that would ultimately bury careers, reputations, and the carefully constructed illusions upon which the very fabric of celebrity stardom is woven.
She said, just read it, because I was looking for movies that could be commercial and speak to the human experience. And
Were you reading romance novels?
And I had never read a romance novel.
Never?
And she said, just trust me, read it. So I read it, and by the end of the book, I couldn't even read the text on the page because I was crying so much. My wife was in bed next to me, and she's, I got snot coming out of my nose.
The meticulously maintained facade of on-set harmony, initially presented to the public as a picture of seamless collaboration and shared artistic vision, began to visibly and increasingly dramatically fracture, the cracks in the carefully constructed image appearing first as hushed murmurs, then evolving into more pronounced pronouncements, reaching a crescendo with the unmistakable declaration that Blake Lively was demonstrably, unequivocally unhappy, and not just vaguely dissatisfied with the artisanal coffee in her trailer or the slightly less than optimal lighting on set. She was reportedly deeply, intensely, and increasingly vocally unhappy with Justin Baldoni, specifically targeting him as the primary source of her escalating professional discontent. The initial whispers, confined to the tightly knit circles of industry insiders, production staff, and online gossip forums, gradually intensified in volume and specificity, morphing from vague anxieties into more concrete and increasingly damaging accusations directed squarely at Baldoni. Baldoni. Blake, it was now being widely circulated, felt profoundly, perhaps even deliberately, overshadowed by Baldoni's multifaceted and seemingly all-encompassing presence on the project. The core of her burgeoning frustration, according to sources leaking details from the set, seemed to stem from what she perceived as Baldoni's overreaching and perhaps even ego-driven multifaceted role in the film's production. He wasn't simply content to occupy the traditional director's chair, guiding the actors and shaping the visual narrative. He was also deeply, almost possessively involved in every aspect of the creative process, from meticulously shaping and reshaping the script, wielding significant and seemingly unilateral creative control over the narrative arc, to adding significant fuel to the already smoldering fire of on-set tension, casting himself in a principal and reportedly quite substantial character role in the film itself. Sources close to the production, speaking anonymously to various industry outlets and online gossip columns, began to leak tantalizing and increasingly inflammatory stories suggesting that Blake felt her own artistic contribution, her own hard-earned star power, was being systematically marginalized, her voice and her creative input drowned out by what she perceived as Baldoni's overbearing and self-aggrandizing directorial style. Then, in a carefully orchestrated and strategically timed shift in public narrative, came the bombshell, the calculated pivot from veiled discontent to overt accusation. Blake, through a series of carefully placed leaks to sympathetic media outlets and subtly worded yet undeniably pointed statements issued through her extensive PR network, began to publicly suggest and ultimately outright claim that Baldoni was actively and deliberately undermining her.
It's believing that people and humanity are inherently good, and they crave nutritious food in their soul, just as they do in their bodies.
She implied with increasing vehemence and dramatic flair that he was orchestrating a clandestine campaign of negative publicity, strategically leaking damaging stories to select members of the press, stories meticulously designed to paint her in the most unflattering possible light, difficult, demanding, temperamental, the classic and often unfairly applied diva stereotype that has historically plagued female performers in Hollywood. Initially, and perhaps predictably given the deeply ingrained biases and historical power dynamics within the entertainment industry, a significant segment of both the industry itself and the wider public seemed inclined to, if not outright embrace, then at least seriously consider and entertain Blake's carefully crafted victim narrative. Hollywood, after all, has a long, deeply ingrained, and unfortunately well-documented history of powerful male directors, studio executives, and producers unfairly casting female leads in a consistently negative light whenever creative differences, personality clashes, or power struggles inevitably arise on set. Headlines fueled by carefully curated leaks and emotionally charged social media discourse swiftly and decisively rallied around Blake, casting her in the readily accessible and easily digestible role of the victimized star, the brave and principled artist valiantly standing up for her creative vision against the oppressive forces of a patriarchal and ego-driven Hollywood system, while Baldoni was swiftly and conveniently, and perhaps somewhat unfairly, cast as the overbearing, power-hungry, and inherently villainous director, the convenient antagonist in this unfolding backstage drama. But this meticulously constructed narrative, built on a foundation of carefully crafted suggestion, artfully deployed insinuation, and strategically amplified victimhood, was, in the very near future, about to be violently, irrevocably, and perhaps most damagingly publicly shattered, revealing a far more complex, far more nuanced, and far more morally ambiguous reality lurking beneath the surface of celebrity scandal.
And being frank, if it were not for women giving me direct feedback in my own personal life, and being a man who was willing to at least listen to them, there's no chance that I would be having this conversation. So the message, to answer your question, the message is very simple. As men, we need to embrace all of the parts of us that make us human. That's it.
It is.
It's very simple.
The meticulously constructed house of cards that was Blake Lively's carefully crafted victim narrative, painstakingly assembled through weeks of strategic leaks, subtly worded accusations, and artful manipulation of public perception, came crashing down with the force of a digital earthquake, sending shockwaves throughout Hollywood and irrevocably altering the trajectory of the unfolding scandal. Justin Baldoni's team, realizing the potentially devastating impact of the escalating smear campaign on his professional reputation and sensing sensing the urgent need to reclaim control of the narrative, decided to unleash their own, far more potent and undeniably game-changing arsenal, receipts. And these weren't just vague, unsubstantiated hearsay accounts, flimsy anecdotal evidence, or conveniently edited snippets of out-of-context conversations. This was documented, irrefutable, and meticulously time-stamped proof, a veritable digital paper trail that would ultimately dismantle the carefully constructed illusion of Blake's victimhood and expose a far more complicated and considerably less flattering reality. Text messages, meticulously preserved and unedited email chains, detailed digital communication logs, all meticulously time-stamped with irrefutable digital markers as solid and legally binding as courtroom evidence. This wasn't just he said she said gossip fodder to be dissected and debated in online forums and industry blogs. This was concrete, verifiable, and damning evidence, and it landed in the heart of Hollywood's carefully curated image-making machine like a tactical nuke, detonating the carefully manufactured narrative of Blake's victimhood and scattering the meticulously spun PR campaign into irreparable fragments. These receipts, once meticulously analyzed, scrutinized, and disseminated to key industry figures and select members of the media, revealed a dramatically, almost diametrically opposed story, a stark and unsettling counterpoint to Blake's previously unchallenged and widely accepted image of the oppressed artist valiantly fighting for her creative vision. Instead of Blake being the vulnerable, marginalized, and artistically stifled actress, struggling valiantly against a domineering and creatively stifling director, the cold, hard digital paper trail painted a strikingly different and considerably more unflattering picture of her as actively, aggressively, and often quite ruthlessly making demands, exerting pressure, and attempting to exert near total control over virtually every aspect of the film's production, asserting her considerable influence not just over her own performance and creative input, but over the script, the direction, the marketing, and even the carefully managed public perception of the entire project. Initially, Ryan Reynolds had occupied a shadowy, almost spectral presence on the periphery of this escalating Hollywood drama. He was the powerful husband, the implied muscle, the unspoken threat that Blake could and seemingly would unleash if her demands weren't met. But the release of the digital receipts dragged him unceremoniously and irrevocably from the shadows and thrust him directly into the blinding glare of the spotlight. The messages, meticulously dissected and analyzed, revealed a far more active and deeply concerning role for Reynolds than anyone had initially suspected. He wasn't simply offering spousal support, a comforting shoulder to lean on. He was actively, strategically, and seemingly enthusiastically collaborating with Blake in what appeared to be a calculated campaign against Justin Baldoni. Challenging Baldoni's directorial authority wasn't just Blake's initiative. The receipts suggested Ryan was actively involved in formulating these challenges, suggesting specific tactics and pressure points. Spinning the narrative to unequivocally favor Blake wasn't just a PR damage control exercise. It appeared to be a coordinated, multi-pronged strategy, with Ryan actively brainstorming angles and approaches. Suggesting tactics to systematically discredit Baldoni wasn't just idle gossip. The logs detailed specific proposals for leaking damaging information, for painting Baldoni in the worst possible light, for undermining his credibility within the industry. This was a different Ryan Reynolds than the one beamed into living rooms across the globe. The affable everyman, the self-deprecating comedian. The receipts painted a portrait of a man actively engaged in what many were now calling a smear campaign, a calculated effort to manipulate public opinion and damage a colleague's reputation. The logs detailed specific phone calls Reynolds allegedly made to influential contacts, brainstorming sessions focused on crafting unfavorable tidbits about Baldoni, and meticulously planned angles designed to strategically recast Blake as the blameless, misunderstood hero in this rapidly unfolding saga. For a star whose carefully cultivated brand was built on humor, goodwill, and an almost universally perceived nice guy persona, these revelations were not just damaging, they were potentially career-ending. It suggested a level of calculated manipulation, a capacity for behind-the-scenes maneuvering that clashed violently and irreconcilably with his squeaky clean public image. The central question now wasn't just about Blake's actions, it was about Ryan's direct documented involvement, his apparent complicity in what was increasingly being viewed as unethical and potentially reputation-destroying behavior, and the rapidly escalating damage to his once untarnished public persona. When the full, unvarnished, and deeply disturbing weight and ethical implications of these meticulously documented digital receipts finally reached the rarefied air of the upper echelons of Marvel Entertainment executives, the reaction within the studio, according to multiple industry sources, was reportedly swift, decisive, and bordering on panic. Alarm bells and likely full-blown sirens went off at the highest levels of the monolithic studio, signaling a crisis of unprecedented proportions. Ryan Reynolds, once universally regarded as an invaluable asset, a franchise linchpin, and a guaranteed box office draw, now, in the stark light of these damning revelations, represented a significant and rapidly escalating liability, a ticking time bomb of scandal and ethical compromise threatening to detonate at the very heart of their carefully constructed, family-friendly, and globally dominant cinematic universe. The very idea that their beloved Deadpool, their wisecracking and seemingly scandal-proof comedic star, might be actively and demonstrably involved in unethical behind-the-scenes maneuvering in what was now universally characterized as a cold, calculated, and ethically reprehensible smear campaign against a respected colleague sent seismic shockwaves throughout the usually unflappable and meticulously controlled studio environment. Marvel Entertainment, fiercely protective of its meticulously crafted and relentlessly promoted family-friendly image, its carefully cultivated reputation for ethical conduct, and its unwavering commitment to maintaining a controversy-free brand, recognized with stark clarity the existential threat this rapidly escalating scandal posed to their carefully constructed empire, sticking by Reynolds, publicly defending him, or even attempting to downplay the severity of the allegations in the face of this mounting and increasingly damning body of digital evidence, risked triggering a massive and potentially irreversible backlash that could ripple outwards from disgruntled fans to alienated cast members and even potentially deter future collaborators wary of associating with a studio seemingly willing to overlook such serious and ethically compromising allegations. Then, with a speed, decisiveness, and almost ruthless efficiency that surprised even the most seasoned and jaded Hollywood insiders, came the hammer blow, the decisive act that would irrevocably alter the course of Ryan Reynolds' career and send shockwaves throughout the entire entertainment industry. Marvel executives convened a series of emergency high-level meetings, meticulously reviewed and re-reviewed the totality of the digital receipts, leaving no stone unturned in their assessment of the damning evidence, and ultimately reached a unified and unequivocal conclusion that sent tremors throughout Hollywood. They were, with immediate effect, firing Ryan Reynolds, severing all professional ties, and publicly distancing themselves from the once beloved star. The official statement released by Marvel Entertainment to the global media was stark, almost brutally direct in its language, pointedly devoid of the usual corporate spin, PR fluff, and carefully crafted euphemisms that typically characterize Hollywood damage control efforts. It was brief, bordering on curt in its tone, citing a recent, thorough, and undeniably damning review of newly disclosed information, and concluding unequivocally and without room for interpretation that Ryan Reynolds' position with the studio was no longer tenable. No carefully worded excuses were offered, no vague corporate jargon was deployed to soften the blow, no attempt was made to spin the narrative or minimize the severity of the situation, just a direct, final, and utterly unambiguous dismissal, delivered with a chilling efficiency that underscored the gravity of the situation and the studio's unwavering commitment to damage control. It was a move that resonated far beyond the immediate scandal, sending a chilling and unmistakable message throughout Hollywood and the wider entertainment world. In the relentlessly documented and increasingly transparent age of digital evidence, even A-list stars, even seemingly untouchable franchise players, even figures as deeply embedded in the Hollywood power structure as Ryan Reynolds are ultimately not immune to the very real and often devastating consequences of their actions. Accountability, in an industry long perceived as operating by its own set of unwritten rules, often divorced from the ethical standards that govern other professions, finally appeared to be having its long overdue and undeniably impactful moment in the harsh, unforgiving glare of the global public spotlight. While the immediate crisis surrounding Ryan Reynolds' dramatic dismissal from Marvel Entertainment may have, to some extent, subsided from the fever pitch of initial media frenzy, the long-term fallout from this explosive and ethically charged scandal is still swirling like a persistent vortex, the dust refusing to fully settle, leaving behind a landscape of uncertainty, speculation, and profound questions about the future of celebrity power and accountability in Hollywood. Ryan Reynolds' once seemingly guaranteed and endlessly lucrative future future in the carefully controlled ecosystem of Hollywood is now shrouded in an unprecedented level of uncertainty. His meticulously planned and meticulously promoted career trajectory abruptly and perhaps irrevocably thrown into question. His once untarnished and seemingly bulletproof public image, the very foundation of his enduring stardom, having taken a direct, brutal, and potentially irreparable hit. Blake Lively, initially and perhaps strategically positioned as the sympathetic figure in this unfolding drama, now faces a far more skeptical, far more critical, and far more unforgiving public eye, her carefully cultivated reputation for warmth and charm severely damaged by the damning revelations contained within the unsparing digital receipts, her future projects now viewed through a lens of heightened scrutiny and lingering suspicion. Justin Baldoni, unexpectedly caught in the tumultuous crossfire of this high-stakes celebrity maelstrom, has emerged, somewhat surprisingly and perhaps against all initial odds. With his professional integrity largely intact, his reputation for ethical conduct and creative vision arguably even enhanced by his handling of the crisis, though undoubtedly emotionally and professionally scarred by the ordeal of being targeted in such a public and damaging smear campaign. Marvel Entertainment's swift, decisive, and undeniably impactful action, a move perceived by many industry observers as both ethically necessary and strategically shrewd, has sent powerful reverberations throughout the entertainment industry, establishing a potentially transformative, new, and far-reaching precedent regarding accountability, ethical conduct, and the very real consequences of behind-the-scenes misconduct in the often immoral world of Hollywood power dynamics. Will Ryan Reynolds, a proven master of reinvention, a savvy manipulator of public image, and a figure known for his remarkable resilience in the face of past controversies, attempt a carefully crafted and meticulously orchestrated damage control campaign seeking to rehabilitate his tarnished reputation and claw his way back into Hollywood's good graces? Will he issue a carefully worded, strategically ambiguous public apology, perhaps attempting to downplay the severity of his documented involvement in the smear campaign, refuting certain damning texts as taken out of context, or claiming his actions were somehow misinterpreted and exaggerated by a sensation-seeking media? Or is this professional break, this public shunning by one of Hollywood's most powerful and influential studios, simply too final, too profound, and too publicly damning to ever truly mend, leaving his once promising and seemingly limitless career permanently derailed? One thing, however, remains undeniably and irrevocably clear in the aftermath of this explosive scandal. This Hollywood drama has brutally and perhaps permanently exposed the inherent fragility of celebrity perfection, the carefully constructed illusion of the untouchable star, and the often stark reality of the human flaws and ethical compromises that can lurk beneath the glittering surface of fame and fortune. It's a stark, sobering, and profoundly unsettling reminder that in the relentlessly documented, increasingly transparent, and digitally unforgiving age of social media, email trails, and unedited communication logs, no one, regardless of their fame, their fortune, or their carefully cultivated public persona, is truly immune to the unforgiving scrutiny of the truth, and no one can ultimately escape the potentially devastating consequences of their own documented actions. And when an institution as monolithic, as influential, and as ethically conscious, or at least ethically image conscious, as Marvel Entertainment finally determines that the accumulated digital evidence is simply too damaging, too toxic, and too ethically compromising to ignore, the door to opportunity, once seemingly open indefinitely and promising limitless rewards, can slam shut with startling, irreversible, and potentially career-ending finality. This isn't just another fleeting celebrity scandal destined to fade from the headlines within a news cycle or two. It's a potential watershed moment in Hollywood history, a possible turning point in how the entertainment industry navigates the treacherous terrain of unchecked power, meticulously managed public image, and the unyielding, often brutal reality of digital receipts in the 21st century. What do you, the increasingly discerning and digitally empowered audience, think in the wake of this Hollywood earthquake? Has Marvel Entertainment, in decisively firing Ryan Reynolds, truly set a new and meaningful precedent for accountability, ethical conduct, and the consequences of behind-the-scenes manipulation in the often immoral world of celebrity power? And can Ryan Reynolds, a star seemingly built to last, a figure once considered an unshakable pillar of Hollywood's elite, ever truly recover from this career-defining, reputation-shattering scandal? Or is this the beginning of a long and perhaps irreversible fade into the shadows of Hollywood history. Let us know your insightful thoughts, your informed predictions, and your often astute observations in the comments section below. The digital town square where the real Hollywood narratives are now, more often than not, truly written and ultimately judged.